Today, I'm taking a look at the last 9 miles of the Chicago Marathon course.
Down in the dungeon is all we know, where the shining light, we never go into the open. As far as you can see it, wasting there a big bright destiny. Don't you feel like breaking free? Open your eyes, embrace what you see now. Don't you feel like cutting loose? Yeah, cutting loose, cutting loose. I'm alive, I do or die. My mind stretched out on the canopy. My dreams getting bigger than you and me. I'm alive, I do or die. Taking the lead, now I'm evergreen. My dreams getting bigger than you and me. Alive, I do or die. I'm alive, do or die. I'm alive, I do or die. My mind stretched out on the canopy. My dreams getting bigger than you and me. I'm alive, I do or die. Taking the lead, now I'm evergreen. My dreams getting bigger than you and me. I do or die. My mind stretched out on the canopy. My dreams getting bigger than you and me. I'm alive, I do or die. Taking the lead, now I'm evergreen. My dreams getting bigger than you and me.
8.38 miles, 7 minutes, 36 seconds per mile, or something in that category. I had some start-stop issues with auto pause on my watch today. Some of the other runners that I was with had 9 miles on the day. We went a little bit past the actual finish line of the Chicago Marathon course so we could get to that 9-mile mark. But running with a group of runners from the Edge Athlete Lounge, that's where my coach coaches, and got to run with some of her runners out there today, as well as one of the runners from the Nike team that I've been training with on Thursdays. But it was really great to get those last 9 miles in, especially the last 2 were at marathon pace, and I was running with Dan, who has very similar paces to mine. He's shooting for a 3:02 marathon on Sunday, so we were able to run those last 2 together. Although with stops and starts at the stoplights, the entire group that I ran with that day, we all ended up finishing at the same time. But the main point of the run today wasn't so much the times, it wasn't so much the splits, at least in my mind. One is to get kind of a longish run, or the last long run of this marathon training block and the taper, but it was more mental than it was physical. The idea being to start the run at a point where most people are starting to hit the wall at around mile 18, and get really familiar with that last part of the course. I know most of you won't be able to do it, but I did want to go over a couple of kind of things to keep in mind and reminders as you're like struggling or feeling like you're hurting through those last 9 miles. So we picked up at mile 18. And that area is, I think it's like the Little Italy area. It'll be after the halfway point where you come back downtown. And then there's kind of like a west out and back. You go out west and you come back. And that's long in and of itself. And that's, I think, where a lot of people kind of start to die, because there are some cheer stations out there, but that's where like crowd support kind of starts to dwindle. There's not as many tall buildings as you head out west in that region. And so if it's sunny that day, that's when the weather really starts to affect you. But after you come back from that area, you start heading down into the Little Italy area where we were at Halsted and Taylor. There, you're going to run through the neighborhoods for a little bit of time. On this run, I was able to see work from JC Rivera and Frank Quintaro, who are two of my favorite Chicago artists right now. And that was great to see, leading up into one of the two main bridges. You're going to cross over the Chicago River You'll get a nice shot of the city to your left, but it does feel like a fairly large bridge, but there is a nice downhill after that. Once you get on that bridge, that means that Chinatown is quickly approaching. So you're going to get to Chinatown really soon from there. And then you're going to make a right turn down Wentworth. You're going to go through that Chinatown gate. It's going to be a huge area. I think that's where the biofreeze kind of, you can take a pit stop and spray that like weird spray on yourself. And then you're going to go down Chinatown and you're going to run through Chinatown. You're going to have a lot of adrenaline going through there because especially if it's a nice day, there's going to be tons of spectators. It's also a really great spectating spot because it's very close to the Red Line in terms of the mass transportation. So lots of people tend to be right there. But after you leave Chinatown, that's kind of another spot of despair for me because it gets very industrial. You're running essentially underneath the highway and along like weird strip malls kind of for a long time after that, or what feels like a long time after that. But here's a couple of things to keep in mind. In that stretch, there's a lot of like running groups. I think Lululemon had their cheer squad in that area last year. But again, it's a spot where cheering is relatively sparse. But once you start feeling like, man, this gets really industrial here and you feel like it's really boring scenery, you're going to start seeing signs for the White Sox Stadium. Then you're going to cross over the highway and you're headed into the campus of Illinois Institute of Technology. It's going to be a little bit grassy in that area, a little bit scenic. It'll look more like neighborhoods. Last year, I remember underneath the bridge entering kind of that zone, there was a lady handing out beers, and then it gets a little bit rowdy in that area, which is nice and welcome because otherwise it's pretty quiet. And you're running in kind of like these weird neighborhoods that I'm not that familiar with, and I think most people aren't going to be familiar with, and it seems kind of just generic. But just keep in mind that once you're in that area, there's going to be a couple of turns really fast, like within like half miles, there'll be 3 turns because you're basically turning around, and then you're going to start heading up Indiana. Once you start heading up Indiana, I think it's like a divided street. It's a boulevard with like a grassy median in the middle. That means that you're not that far from kind of the final like turns. It's not really a turn. It's a weird kind of like hook over on the map where you're going to then hit that diagonal and then you'll be on Michigan Avenue, which is the last really long straightaway. And so once you're on Michigan Avenue, you're kind of going through some neighborhoods, some transitional parts. From neighborhoods to more of like a city urban like downtown area. Once you get to like the downtown area, then you're going to start seeing a lot more spectators again. Most likely those spectators have come from Chinatown, the Red Line. They take the train to get to the Red Line station and Chinatown. Then you can walk over to that spot on Michigan Avenue and catch your runners if you are a spectator, and you can see them there. So there's a lot of people there, and you're also very close to the finish. And then once you're going down that road, the thing that I would keep in mind is you're going to start feeling like you're in a city or like a big city again or downtown area. But it's going to get windy because you have like the urban canyon effect. The park and the lake are directly to the east as you're coming up Michigan Avenue, and then you've got like a wall of skyscrapers, and so any air that's coming off the lake just slams into those buildings and like shoots down Michigan Avenue. So it tends to get very windy on that street if there's any wind at all, regardless of like kind of which direction the wind is coming from. It always just feels like a headwind coming up Michigan Avenue. So just keep that in mind. And that's what you'll have to deal with as you come up to the last turns before you go uphill up Roosevelt, which is a hill. It's not really that big. I think in elevation it's like 30 or maybe not even 40 feet. It just feels like a lot because you're coming around that last corner at like mile 26.1. And you've been dealing with a giant headwind coming up Michigan Avenue, but you'll turn up the hill, and that's the last hill because once you get to the top of it, and it's not really a hill, it's actually a bridge that takes you up above the commuter rail lines. You go up that bridge, and once you get to the top of that bridge, you make a left, and that's the home stretch, and you'll be able to see the finish line from there. You'll be able to feel that you're nearing the finish as you start going up the hill on Roosevelt anyway, because you're going to start seeing some of the banners and the advertisements along the way. So you're going to know that you're there. You'll know it from the crowd noise. You'll know it because you've seen the mile markers, and you know it because you feel like you're about to die. But know that when you're at that point, when you're making that last turn up the hill, that's it. That's the finish. So usually most people will try to make a charge up the hill, but then save their kick for once they make it down, because you've got like a couple hundred meters, I think, before you finally make it down to that last part and cross the finish line. So I felt really strong coming down the hill, going up the hill, the entire last 9 miles of the course today. And I was really happy to run with the Edge group out there and have that support as well. Also, I tend to get lost really easily, even when there's a blue line painted on the road to help guide me. So I was glad to have other people there to help make sure that we didn't get lost. But it was really great mentally to be able to defeat kind of the last 9 miles of the course. I feel like when you're tired and you are a little bit unfamiliar with the course or how much further you have to go, that is a good setting in point for that like despair that will soon become like the mental part of the wall that you might hit. And for me, being able to be in that area and know, okay, when I'm here, I've felt that despair before in prior marathons that I've run. And so I just need to remind myself that when I'm here, okay, Sox Stadium is coming up soon. Or when I'm here, we're going to start turning around and going up Indiana soon. Or when I'm here and I'm seeing this grassy boulevard, that means that we're going to be hitting Michigan soon. And so like those things in my mind are going to help me from feeling like, oh, there's just so much race left, I don't know how I'm going to finish running this at this pace. Instead, I can think about what's next, what's next, what next. I'm not usually one that kind of memorizes a route or tries to like have visual cues of like what each mile or what certain parts are. But I think for this race, since it's my hometown race, one that I'm shooting for, an ambitious goal for, I think having that in my mind is going to be very useful for me as I go into those that back 9 of the Chicago Marathon. So those are my thoughts on the last miles of the Chicago Marathon course. If you have any questions about it, feel free to put in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys more about it down there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?